all Harry and Meghan need to do is prove to us that she popped those babies out. And that's all they need to do. And if they don't, it is unfair on the children. It's also unfair on the royal family.
People think her kids are fake. They think they're AI.
The whole description she does of the Portland hospital, the birth, that was completely fabricated.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle believed they could keep their children completely out of the spotlight. But now that plan is starting to crack in a very unexpected way. What was once a tightly controlled and private situation is suddenly pulling massive public attention, with bold claims from Tom Bower, placing Archie and Lilibet right at the center of a growing storm. People are beginning to question everything, and the conversations around family background and identity are spreading fast, taking the situation to a whole new level of drama. What started as quiet curiosity has now turned into loud, non-stop demands for clarity, and the noise is only getting stronger. The palace has remained silent, but outside those walls, the pressure keeps building. Calls for confirmation and transparency are becoming harder to ignore, and the tension surrounding this story is rising fast. The entire situation is moving in a direction that could reshape how many people view the royal family, and that's what has everyone locked in right now. Everything just shifted for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and it's happening quickly. What used to be private family space is now turning into one of the most talked about topics online, and people cannot look away. A fresh wave of claims from Tom Bower has pushed Archie and Lilibet into the spotlight again, and the reaction has been intense from every angle. Instead of the usual royal updates, the focus has completely changed. Now the attention is centered on their children in a way no one saw coming. Across social media, people are revisiting past moments they feel don't fully line up, connecting details and raising questions that have been quietly building over time.
This scandal comes as no surprise. Speculation about the children has been simmering for years.
If she hasn't had the children herself, or Harry hadn't been involved, then they can't be in the royal line. They have to have royal blood, those little ones. Without that, there's no chance of them becoming a member of the royal family.
This case about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bum. The fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Prince Archie.
So she wasn't even pregnant. So it's very weird. And Harry, it was said to Harry, not to her. I mean, she just...
What once stayed in the background is now impossible to ignore, and it's gaining momentum fast. For a couple who clearly wanted to protect their children from public attention, this sudden shift feels huge. More voices are joining the conversation every day, pushing this story further into the spotlight and keeping the discussion alive. The more this spreads, the harder it is to contain. And right now, it feels like it's everywhere. One question keeps showing up across every platform, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. People keep asking who Archie and Lilibet really are. And while that kind of question would normally feel way too personal, the level of public curiosity has pushed it into the spotlight again and again. Tom Bower's claims are also pulling attention back to how certain personal decisions may have been handled behind closed doors. Some are suggesting there could be more to the story than what has been shared publicly. And when it comes to family lineage, that always carries serious weight. That's exactly why the situation is gaining so much traction right now, and why people keep digging deeper. At the same time, Prince Harry appears to be under intense pressure like never before. His public image is shifting as constant scrutiny builds, with people forming opinions nonstop and analyzing.
Has entered the mainstream media domain.
They need to prove that those children, Meghan and Harry, are not entitled to privacy in this matter. And their privacy is trumped by our right to know that no bastard is going to sit on the throne of this country.
Like, why lie? It was just so truly, truly bizarre.
Meghan is using everything for publicity and not really truly there. We know how
every move. Reports describe a tense environment, with Harry seeming restless at times, reacting strongly, and staying closely tuned to everything being said about him. The difference in how he's being perceived now is hard to ignore, especially compared to how steady his image once seemed. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle is handling things in a completely different way, and that contrast is drawing even more attention. Her approach is being described as controlled and strategic, focusing on legal steps and keeping everything tightly managed. There are no emotional public reactions, no dramatic statements, just a quiet and firm effort to manage the situation before it spreads further. But here's where things take another turn. The more the situation is pushed down, the more it seems to rise back up even stronger instead of fading away. The conversation keeps growing, with more people stepping in, asking sharper questions, and re-examining details that may have gone unnoticed before. Old moments are being revisited, timelines are being questioned, and everything is being looked at from a completely new perspective. Now everything is under a microscope. The way their family story has been presented is being discussed more openly, with some saying it felt too polished or too controlled. And when things appear overly perfect, curiosity naturally grows even more. Critics say there was plenty of time to clear up confusion, but instead, privacy was maintained. And now that same privacy is being interpreted in a very different way. All eyes are on them as this continues to unfold.
The irrefutable truth comes out.
Living a life that she's winning and she's doing all these great things, but the reality is not that.
Absolutely. What we're really now seeing is that both of them, having posed as the victim,
daughter Lilibeth's 4th birthday by sharing some personal photographs. A rare sighting of a little girl seen in this picture with her father, Prince Harry, and now her mom. The child's face is partially covered as a royal couple is known to fiercely guard the privacy of their 2 children. On Instagram, Meghan wrote, "Happy birthday to our beautiful girl. 4 years ago today, she came into our..."
Whether people agree with Tom Bower or not, one thing is clear. The silence from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle isn't slowing anything down. If anything, it's making the conversation louder. And the attention isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Another detail people keep pointing out is the noticeable distance between Archie and Lilibet and the rest of the royal family. That absence is raising more questions, especially when compared to how often other royal children are seen sharing moments with senior family members. Photos, appearances, and interactions that feel natural and consistent are common elsewhere. But here, that same pattern isn't as visible, and people are starting to notice more than ever. There are very few widely shared moments showing strong public family interaction, and that lack of visibility is becoming a major talking point. Some believe it could simply come down to personal choices, while others think it may have been intentional from the beginning. Either way, the conversation around that distance is growing, adding another layer to an already intense situation. This is where things become even more serious. People are now discussing possibilities that usually stay private, including personal family decisions that are rarely talked about publicly. In most cases, those choices are completely normal and personal. But within a royal context where lineage holds significance, the conversation carries a different level of importance. If any details were ever unclear or misunderstood,
it was, of course, that she was hunting for a man in England from 2013 onwards, when her marriage had crashed and she couldn't find anyone in Canada at the time. And she wanted wealth and she wanted fame. And she targeted, there's no doubt she targeted.
Tom, do you think Harry and Meghan are fast learning what they signed away when they took this Netflix big moolah? And I would say they signed away their credibility and their dignity.
Well, that's our view, but it's not theirs. They need the money, and they need it now more than ever because they've got no other source of income. So I think they're just stuck with the devil now. They're tied to Netflix, they're tied to their book, and all the criticism they're going to take means nothing because that's the only way they can earn their money.
I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point. And the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. You know, I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country.
Even unintentionally, it could lead to bigger discussions tied to tradition and structure. The monarchy has always depended on a sense of continuity, and anything that challenges that perception quickly becomes a major topic of focus. That's why this situation is drawing so much attention right now. It's not just about one family anymore. It connects to how people view the stability of a much larger institution. Even small uncertainties can grow into much bigger discussions when they involve something this historic, and that's exactly what seems to be happening. And then there's Tom Bower, right at the center of all these claims. He's known for sharing detailed and sometimes debated perspectives on royal matters, and that reputation alone is enough to get people paying attention. Every time his name comes up, it tends to spark strong reactions. And this situation is no exception. Right now, the conversation is louder, more intense, and far from over.
Hoped your children, Archie and Lilibet, would have had that you think they won't be able to now with this decision?
Well, for a start, the only time that I've come back to the UK is sadly for funerals or court cases.
The Queen and the Duke.
Yes, and we just bumped into the Duke as we were walking by, which was so nice. So it'll be a nice moment to introduce the baby to more family, and my mom's with us as well. So it's been a really, here we go.
Another great grand.
He's not very intelligent and undoubtedly remains damaged by the early death of his mother, Diana. And he very foolishly blames the media for her, in his words, which is complete nonsense. But I think he loved the adulation. He loved it when he was being praised, especially when he was a soldier. But then he became criticized, firstly because he became drunk in public.
Many are describing this as a spark that could grow into something much bigger, and the attention surrounding it continues to build. If these claims keep gaining traction, the impact on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's public image could be significant, with more people questioning the story they thought they understood. What's really intensifying the reaction right now is one key detail: the silence through all the noise. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle haven't stepped forward with a clear public response. No detailed statement, no direct clarification, and no visible move to settle the questions once and for all. That quiet approach is standing out more than anything else, and people are noticing it fast. Instead of calming things down, that silence is doing the opposite. It's pushing more people to ask questions, to speculate, and to keep the discussion going. The longer it continues, the more attention it pulls in, and the harder it becomes to slow everything down. Now the pressure is building in a very public way. Calls for clear answers are spreading across platforms, with debates happening everywhere from social media threads to major talk shows.
In love, and already is talking about marriage, but long before their engagement is even announced, let alone they're married and she's pregnant. And he's sitting in Clarence's house with then Prince Charles and Camilla. And Camilla just laughingly says, well, any child you'll have will probably have brown skin and ginger hair.
What about the security arrangements that were in place made you feel it would be unsafe for you and your family?
There's only so much that I can say because of the redaction process and the national security matters at hand, but everything. Because in beginning of 2020, I was scored the highest as far as risk was concerned. And then overnight, I was reduced to the lowest.
Every detail is being analyzed. Photos, timelines, past interviews, all of it is being re-examined as people try to piece everything together. Online, the conversation has taken on a life of its own, and it's moving fast. One question keeps repeating again and again. If everything is accurate, why not address it directly and clear the air? That curiosity is what keeps this topic trending, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Every day without a response adds another layer to the story, making it more intense and harder to manage from a public perspective. What started as a small wave of discussion has now turned into a full-scale media storm that continues to grow. From a public image standpoint, this is a critical moment. The Sussex image has always been built around a carefully presented story focused on family stability and a new chapter away from royal life. From interviews to documentaries, every detail helped shape that image. But now with all eyes watching and questions stacking up, that image is being examined more closely than ever. The pressure is on, and what once looked polished is now starting to show visible cracks that people can't ignore. This shift feels deeper and more intense than anything before.
Then he was wearing absolutely nothing in the nude at the party in Las Vegas, and he couldn't cope with the criticism because in his view, he is a target. And it didn't help. His telephones were hacked by News International, Rupert Murdoch's group here in London.
Well, look, Radar Online, in fairness, they do quote you and say Royal Author Lady Colin Campbell recently challenged the conspiracy of silence and misinformation surrounding.
No carefully staged photo or perfectly worded interview seems strong enough to quiet the growing noise. For Prince Harry, this situation is hitting on a completely different level. This isn't being seen as just another headline. It feels personal and tied directly to the story he's built over the years. Fatherhood has always been a central part of that story. He has spoken many times about how becoming a father gave him purpose, direction, and stability. It became a key part of how people understood his journey after stepping away from royal duties. Now critics are focusing directly on that part of his life, raising questions that challenge the foundation of that narrative. And those kinds of questions don't just affect public image, they touch something much more personal and meaningful. That's why the reaction feels so intense right now. This is no longer just about public perception. It's about identity, reputation, and how his story is being viewed in real time. The conversation has shifted from curiosity into something far more serious, and it's placing him under a level of scrutiny that keeps growing. People are now looking at Prince Harry from completely different angles, and the contrast is clear. Some portray him as being out of the loop, while others believe he's fully aware of everything happening. Neither perspective paints a stable picture, and both are being discussed heavily across platforms. What makes it even more complicated is how these narratives leave very little room for control. The more the conversation spreads,
Always been her motive. She's money obsessed and always has been. And that is why she married Prince Harry. A great surprise and disappointment was to discover that Prince Harry had very little money. She imagined he'd be worth hundreds of millions, if not billions. And she's having to make up for it now.
That she never intended to go to the Portland hospital. She intended to have the baby at home. We know that they deceived the public about the birth date and time of the whole event. So, and also, you know, even it goes down to the lawyer saying that in that statement, when they have that long attack on the Mail, which is astonishing, that Meghan, we know.
the harder it becomes to manage how his story is being told. Right now, the spotlight isn't just on what's true or not. It's on how everything is being perceived. And in the middle of it all, one theme keeps coming back: control, or the lack of it. Because at this point, the biggest question isn't just about the claims themselves. It's about who gets to define the story moving forward, and whether Prince Harry can regain that control. Reports from Montecito describe an atmosphere that feels tense and difficult to ignore. The environment is set to be strained, with pressure building behind closed doors. According to what's being shared, Prince Harry appears deeply focused on everything being said, constantly checking headlines, scrolling through updates, and even watching online discussions where people break down every detail of his family story. This isn't being described as casual attention, it's non-stop. Every photo, every timeline, every claim is being examined publicly, and he's reportedly taking it all in. People close to the situation say the stress is starting to show, with restless energy, quick reactions, and long nights that don't seem to bring real rest. The weight of everything is beginning to show outward, and observers say it's becoming harder to miss. What stands out even more is the contrast between past and present. Prince Harry once positioned himself as a strong voice for mental health, encouraging openness and balance. Now,
and perhaps she has inside information. I don't see how the Sussexes can give up both the Netflix and the book deal. They won't be living in a Montecito cottage. They're more likely living somewhere in downtown LA, in a little hovel. That's their problem. They're stuck now. But, you know, the truth is about
extraordinary reporting in your book on what this was likely based on and how it doesn't match up to what Meghan said. Here's the clip, Sot 6 from the Oprah interview.
Critics are pointing out how different things appear, saying he seems caught in the kind of pressure he once spoke about overcoming. That contrast is adding even more intensity to an already growing situation, and it's keeping the spotlight firmly locked on him. At the same time, Meghan Markle is said to be handling this situation in a completely different way, and that contrast is pulling just as much attention. Reports describe a focused and strategic approach, with legal teams involved, formal notices being prepared, and a clear effort to manage how the story spreads. But here's where things take another turn. Every move to contain the situation is being watched closely, and instead of slowing things down, it's making people even more curious. Questions are popping up everywhere about why such strong steps are being taken and what it could all mean. That reaction is keeping the conversation alive and pushing it even further into the spotlight. Then there's the royal family, and their silence is standing out just as much. There have been no public comments, no visible family moments, and none of the familiar gestures people are used to seeing. Even routine acknowledgements that would normally happen haven't appeared, and that absence is being noticed more than ever. When compared to Prince William and Catherine's children, who are often seen in public family settings, the difference feels sharp. That contrast is fueling even more discussion, with people wondering what it might signal behind the scenes. Now the big question is getting louder. Do members of the royal family know more than they are saying?
Of course, that was brilliant of you to bring that clip up, because the body language just showed her discomfort as she dug deeper into her own hole. I mean, the truth is this, that there are two truths. The first truth is that the conversation, I'm told and I believe, was very early on in their relationship when Harry is bowled over by Meghan, is desperately in love, and already is talking about...
For the time being, it's impossible for me to take my family back to the UK safely.
You're obviously very deeply affected by this. What memories, experiences had you hoped your children, Archie and Lilibet, would have had that you think they won't be able to now?
Or is this distance simply being misunderstood? Either way, the silence from all sides is adding intensity, and the conversation is not slowing down at all. There's also a new angle starting to gain attention, and it's changing how some people see the situation. Instead of viewing the distance as rejection, some now believe it could actually be intentional protection. The idea is that keeping Archie and Lilibet away from the center of royal life might have been a careful move to avoid future complications. With these claims now being discussed more widely, that theory is gaining traction. Some believe the palace may be choosing to stay quiet on purpose, watching how everything unfolds instead of stepping in too early. It creates the sense of a waiting game, where attention stays focused on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and how they choose to respond. If that interpretation holds any weight, the situation becomes much bigger. It shifts from simple online discussion into something that people start viewing as a broader institutional issue. Because if there were ever concerns at higher levels, the implications could stretch far beyond just one family. At this point, the tone of the conversation has clearly changed. What started as curiosity has turned into ongoing suspicion, and it's no longer limited to smaller circles. Larger platforms, public discussions, and well-known voices are now engaging with the same questions.
Mom feel about your relationship with your brother now?
I think she would be sad. I think she'd be looking at it long term, to know that there are certain things that we need to go through to be able to heal the relationship. I have felt the presence of my mum more so in the last 2 years than I have in the last.
That's our view, but it's not theirs. They need the money, and they need it now more than ever because they've got no other source of income. So I think they're just stuck with the devil now. They're tied to Netflix, they're tied to their book, and all the criticism they're going to take means nothing because that's the only way.
Pushing this topic further into the mainstream. One question keeps coming up again and again. Will Prince Harry and Meghan Markle address these claims directly and clearly? It may seem like a big step, but as long as clarity feels out of reach, the curiosity continues to grow. What's making this even more intense is the idea that there may have been earlier chances to clear things up. Some critics believe explanations could have been given sooner, details could have been clarified, and confusion could have been reduced before reaching this level. Instead, the response has remained limited, and that approach is now being interpreted in very different ways. In today's environment, where every detail is examined closely, silence doesn't just fade away. It becomes part of the story itself, and right now, that silence is being read louder than ever. That's adding even more pressure to a situation that already feels close to a breaking point. What's hitting people the hardest now is the feeling that some of this impact might not be easy to reverse. Prince Harry, once seen as a bold and independent figure, is now being viewed in a very different way. And the shift is hard to miss. Even some who were once closely connected to him are said to be keeping their distance. And that only adds to the growing sense that things have changed in a major way. According to reports,
but long before their engagement is even announced, let alone they're married and she's pregnant. And he's sitting in Clarence's house with then Prince Charles and Camilla. And Camilla just laughingly says, well, any child you'll have will probably have brown skin and ginger hair. And they all laugh, including Harry. I mean, it's not because of racism. It's just one of those things everybody imagines. When somebody is pregnant close to you, you wonder what the child will look like. But it was not said as anything other than that.
And that's why I think, I think Tina is a great journalist, and perhaps she has inside information. I don't see how the Sussexes can give up both the Netflix and the book deal. They won't be living in a Montecito cottage.
His behavior has become harder for people around him to predict, with moments of visible frustration followed by long stretches of quiet withdrawal. Those shifts are being talked about more openly, with some suggesting he may be struggling to maintain a clear sense of direction under all this pressure. What makes this even more intense is how closely it connects to fatherhood, something he has always described as a central part of his life. That role shaped how many people understood his decisions and personal journey. So now, with that part of his story being questioned, it's creating a much deeper impact than a typical public situation would. At the same time, Meghan Markle is being described as steady and controlled in her response, which creates a sharp contrast. Reports suggest she is continuing to rely on structured legal steps, working carefully to manage how the situation is handled publicly and limit how far certain claims spread. But that approach is also drawing attention. Instead of quieting things down, it's leading to even more discussion, with people watching closely and forming their own interpretations. In situations like this, attempts to contain a story can sometimes keep it in the spotlight even longer. Public reaction is also being shaped by everything that came before, from highly produced interviews to carefully presented media projects. There has always been a strong focus on themes like honesty, growth, and transparency, and now, with questions circulating and limited direct responses, that contrast is becoming a major talking point. Some people feel that disconnect strongly, interpreting it as a gap between image and reality. Whether that view is fair or not, it is clearly influencing how the situation is being discussed right now. And through all of this, one detail continues to stand out: the silence from the royal family. There has been no public support, no visible involvement, and no clear signals about where things stand. That absence is being noticed just as much as everything else, leaving Prince Harry and Meghan Markle facing the full weight of the situation on their own. As attention keeps building, the atmosphere behind palace doors is being described as extremely delicate. Careful decisions are reportedly being made about every move, with King Charles III said to have been advised to keep a clear distance. There are concerns that even a small gesture could create bigger complications if the situation shifts unexpectedly. That silence is being interpreted in many different ways, adding even more pressure to an already intense moment. At the same time, there is growing talk about internal discussions happening quietly in the background. These conversations are said to focus on future planning, legal considerations, and how to handle possible outcomes if questions continue to escalate. They are not casual talks, and they reflect how seriously this situation is being viewed behind the scenes. One of the biggest points now being raised revolves around royal structure and long-standing traditions. Questions are coming up about how certain scenarios could affect titles, roles, and positions within the royal framework, and that's adding another layer of intensity to an already complex situation. While nothing has been confirmed, the fact that these possibilities are even being discussed is enough to keep the conversation moving at full speed. People are paying attention not just to what is being said, but to what isn't being said, and that gap is where most of the speculation continues to grow. Could changes ever be made? That's the question that keeps coming up again and again. And right now, there are still no clear answers. The uncertainty is exactly what keeps this topic alive, because when clarity is missing, people naturally start looking for their own explanations. And in a story this visible, those interpretations spread quickly and widely. The lack of direct communication has created an open space where debate continues to expand. Every new discussion, every post, every breakdown adds another layer. And instead of slowing down, the momentum keeps building. It's no longer just a passing topic. It's become something people are actively following, revisiting, and discussing from different angles. What's becoming more obvious is how quickly public perception is shifting. The story that once centered around independence, change, and a fresh chapter is now being viewed through a more critical lens. People are going back, rewatching interviews, reanalyzing statements, and questioning details that didn't stand out before. That shift in perspective is powerful. Once an audience starts re-examining a narrative, it changes how every past moment is interpreted. Things that once felt clear now feel open to debate. And that's exactly what is happening here. The more people revisit the past, the more questions seem to surface. Every unanswered detail adds pressure, and that pressure isn't staying quiet. It's growing, spreading, and becoming harder to manage from a public standpoint. Each day without a clear response doesn't just pause the story, it actually adds intensity to it. Right now, everything feels like it's narrowing down to one key decision. A direct response could potentially bring clarity, give people something concrete to understand, and possibly ease some of the tension. But at the same time, stepping forward could also open the door to even more questions. Depending on how it's handled, on the other side, continued silence keeps the situation exactly where it is, unresolved, open, and constantly discussed. That's the balance at the center of this moment, and it's why so many people are watching closely. Because when it comes to stories tied to legacy and public trust, unanswered questions don't just fade away. They stay in the conversation, shaping opinions over time. Even if nothing new is added, the discussion itself continues to evolve, and that evolution influences how everything is remembered in the long run. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle built their public path around openness, honesty, and a sense of starting fresh. That image connected with many people, and it became a defining part of how their story was understood. But now, with attention at its peak, that same image is being tested in a completely different way. The spotlight is stronger, the scrutiny is deeper, and the conversation is more intense than before. Every move, every decision, and every moment of silence is being noticed and interpreted from multiple angles. And this isn't just happening in small corners of the internet. Larger platforms, public discussions, and widely followed voices are all engaging with the same questions. That's what pushes a story from a trending topic into something much bigger. At this point, it's not just about what is true or not. It's about perception, momentum, and how the story continues to unfold in real time. The way people feel about the situation is now playing just as big of a role as the facts themselves. Another layer to all of this is how quickly narratives can shift. One new detail, one unexpected development, or even one statement can completely change how everything is viewed. That unpredictability is what keeps people locked in, waiting to see what might happen next. There's also the emotional side of it. For some, this story connects to ideas about family, identity, and trust. For others, it's about transparency and consistency. Those different perspectives are what make the conversation so active, because everyone is looking at it from their own angle. And as those perspectives mix together, the discussion becomes even more complex. It's no longer just one narrative. It's multiple interpretations happening at the same time, all feeding into the same moment. What stands out the most right now is how nothing feels settled. There's no clear conclusion, no final answer, and no sign that the conversation is slowing down. Instead, it feels like it's building towards something, even if no one knows exactly what that will be. That sense of anticipation is what keeps people watching, commenting, and coming back. It's not just about what has already happened, it's about what could happen next. At the same time, the silence from all sides continues to play a major role. It's not just the absence of words, it's how that absence is being interpreted. Some see it as a strategic decision, others see it as avoidance, and those different interpretations only add more layers to the story. And when multiple interpretations exist at once, the conversation naturally expands. Each viewpoint brings in new questions, new discussions, and new angles that keep everything moving forward. That's why this moment feels so important, because the direction this story takes next could shape how it's remembered in the future. Whether it shifts toward clarity or continues in uncertainty, that outcome will influence everything that follows. Right now, the situation feels like it's at a turning point. The attention is high, the discussion is active, and the interest isn't fading. If anything, it's growing stronger with time. And the longer this continues without a clear resolution, the more it becomes part of a larger narrative. Not just about one situation, but about how stories like this unfold in the public eye. This is where perception, timing, and response all come together. And depending on what happens next, the entire tone of the conversation could change very quickly. For now, though, the story remains open. The questions are still there, the discussion is still active, and the attention is still focused on what comes next. And that's why this moment feels so different from anything before. It's not just another headline, it's a situation that keeps evolving, with more people joining the conversation every single day. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Prince Harry and Meghan Markle should step forward and address everything directly? Would a clear response bring closure, or would it lead to even more questions being asked? And what do you make of the continued silence from the royal family? Do you see it as a strategy or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This is one of those conversations where every opinion adds something new, and people are paying close attention to what others think. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more deep dives like this, and share it with someone who's been following this story too. Because as this continues to unfold, there's still so much more to talk about. and you don't want to miss what comes next. See you on the next one.